Dr. Marshall, you do have my PowerPoint, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay, cool. I haven't changed it, so it should be the same. So,
You start.
okay. Welcome.
Yeah.
Hope you're having a good morning so far and everything. This is my presentation. I chose the first question that we had. Why do interstates wars occur? And let's continue. Okay. Um, I couldn't really find a specific cause, but I did find an overall theme of like over why people over time go to war. And I kind of changed up the question a little bit. It's still the same though. Why do we go to war? So I was thinking of me like why do we like we go to war instead of that's the way I just thought of it. And I came up with these different ones. I came with three traditional reasons to go to war, which are the first three: fight about borders, land grabbing, ideological or religion. And then these kind of last two, we kind of discussed in class, and they kind of are really brand new, especially the last one, which I'll discuss further in the presentation. Fighting about borders. I like to talk about this one first because it's one of the first ones that we ever seen throughout history. It's just human nature for us to be territorial creatures, and we just defend our borders just like states would, and that's why I put that up there. And an example I would like to use would be the Mexican-American War. It was actually started because of a border dispute between the U.S. and Mexico. I guess it was under the presidency of James Polk, and I guess he sent troops over to Nueces Rivers, and that was the disputed territory. Well, actually, the U.S. already established that the Nueces River was the official border for the U.S., but in Texas, I guess they were being a little bit greedy, and they established that the Rio Grande was the official border for Texas, just to claim a little bit more land for them. And I guess in the eyes of Mexico, when they saw that U.S. troops were going to the Nueces River, that was kind of seen like through Mexico's lenses as an invasion, and they sent their troops and they attacked first, uh, and that's where the whole war started between that. And Mexico kind of lost over, with the wars, and then Mexico lost territory, and I guess with the Treaty of Guadalupe de Hidalgo, they gave up territory and they paid money to the U.S. and that's the cause for fighting about borders. Another example is that we have right now in our time would be Syria and Turkey, and Iran and Iraq and North and South Korea. And those are examples I further explain in my paper. But for presentation, this is the one I have because this is more the one I have more knowledge over. So, yeah. The second reason would be land grabbing. I didn't know at first what land grabbing was, so I gave a definition. The act of taking an area by land force for military or economic reasons. Uh, I kind of came up with this land grabbing what it was because I kind of saw it when I did my research and the discussions we had in class. You can see like in the beginning of what would it be? Colonialism. You see France and Spain grabbing territory from the Americas and exploiting the people there for their benefit. Also, I put down here Crimea in Russia. That was one I discussed further in my paper because you see Crimea getting invaded by Russia. That's the way in the news you see it portrayed as, but when you actually do research Crimea, there's 60% of the population who identify themselves as Russians, and they actually are wanting Russian troops to be in there. And they call him Little Green Man, which is really interesting because that's really funny, and I explain it further in my paper. Uh, and I go on to ideological or religion. It's simply put that either fight for God or ideology. And you really don't really see this anymore since the end of the Cold War, except for, you may call this the Islamic State or the ISIS. I think that may be an exception. And I say that because I guess when I was watching the news, when the terrorist attack happened in Paris, and then a war on the Islamic State, by definition, if they do that, then they are accepting ISIS uh, as a state, and they are going to war against an ideology. So I guess that's why I put that, and I just put these other ones because you can go against war against them, just other ideologies or religions. Another example would be the Crusades, a war on a religion, and they wanted to expand their religion. And then I go on to talking about energy. Energy is a new cause for countries to go to war. And I kind of started talking in my paper about the Arab oil embargo of 1973. I kind of stimulated a system to stay independent for countries for energy. And the French and Sweden and other countries, they kind of build nuclear power to plant nuclear power plants to give them electricity. You can also see where the fight for pipelines go are happening as well. And you kind of see in the U.S. energy independence happening with the shale revolution, and I explain that in my paper further. But like in basics, what the shale revolution is, it's just like the U.S. Having technology to further their production of coal. Shell is just it has like it looks like coal, and you see it right here, and it has like entrapped in it little bubbles of natural gas, and they have a technology to able to separate it, and it has some other chemicals in there that we use for energy, and also by doing that, the U.S. is not too dependent on the importation of gases or resources for energy. And you may also be asking why, like I put here a flag of 9/11 and this is never forget. Well, it deals with what I had talked. Do you really think that the U.S. entered Iraq on the sole reason to spread democracy? I like to think so, but it was something that was planned, but in reality, it was only like a little small factor to it. And I go on to talking about the protection of human rights, which is this is one of the newest ones that we see here for the causes of interstate to go war. I haven't seen it happen, and it's really recently new. It's been adopted by the United Nations. It's called the Responsibility to Protect, or R2P. Um, and it came up because of the Rwanda genocide. We actually got to see a video over it in class, and that kind of opened my eyes on it. I was really surprised to see something like that because I never seen it before. It was the first time I ever see it. And going in class, we discussed over. We didn't really discuss about the R2P. I kind of did that on my own. I went further and found out that they actually, because of that, they came up with the protection to human rights, and it just says that the United Nations has the responsibility to intervene diplomatically and last resort through weapons. This can be a cause. I haven't seen it been used anywhere. This is going to be really hard for the United Nations to actually gather the funds, the military, the soldiers, to go fight for for another country's genocide. And that's pretty much it of my five causes. I have here. There's really like little thing. I use math because I am a math minor. I actually went to a mathematics presentation, or no, it wasn't a presentation. It was a calculus bowl, and they had presentations there. And one of the people who was presenting, they had a really interesting equation. It could predict like how accurate, or like using previous statistics, how well the a basketball team was going to do like in the bowl, I guess in their division. And actually, I think he was talking about like how his is more accurate to than his the one that he was comparing it to, and he was comparing it to Obama's equation because I guess Obama had something to do with that too. And I kind of talked to him afterwards, and he had this. This is like his like the whole structure is really his. I kind of just changed words around and kind of it's made it funny. It's really interesting to see. And I proved that war is evil. Just given W is R, and M equals money, and T's time evil. You basically go through it. War requires money and time, so that's why you have W equals MT, and then T and money, and then so that's why you have T equals M, and then W times M equals M squared, and then we usually say that money is the root of all evil, so you take the root of that, and therefore if you follow that, it's just more equals evil, and that's it. That's it.
All right. All right. So, very, very interesting project here. There are two people I want you to look at. There's one, basically all that you're explaining here is called issue correlate theory.
So it already exists?
It exists, but there's plenty of room to be innovated. The theory is called issue correlate theory. What it does is it attributes the likelihood of war to territory and issues over territory. So, this includes basically understanding different types of territory, of land, rivers, claims, as either salient or unsalient. And the salient ones are the ones that lead to conflict. So it's a way of understanding how territory, specifically territories that are around borders, right, are salient or not, depending on ethnic and religious ties, ideological claims like nationalism, or on top of that, energy, for instance, right? So you see this in many conflicts where there's an oil field or there's a coal mine or a diamond mine or something like that right on the border, and they consistently have interstate disputes over control for that resource. Or it could even be water. I mean, you see interstate disputes between Egypt, Sudan, Ethiopia, and Tanzania all the time for control of the Nile River. And that will increase as the Nile River starts to dry up. So what you're talking about here is called issue correlate theory. I'll send you a link to Paul Hensel's webpage. Paul Hensel is the guy who studies this, and so does another person by the name of what's her name? Sorry. So there's Paul Hensel, but there's also Sarah Mitchell. She's at the University of Iowa. She does this as well. And basically what they both look at is territorial salience. So how claims over territory between countries affect the likelihood of war between them, or also affect the likelihood of cooperation between them. And many of the territorial disputes, the land grabs that you're talking about, are great examples of this. So in class we did a land grab issue between non-state actors in Ethiopia and Kenya, right, for control of rivers. That's considered a territorial dispute or a territorial claim, right, made by a non-state actor. Whereas you have territorial claims between Syria and Turkey for both ideological and religious reasons. You have territorial claim between the U.S. and Mexico that started the Mexican War. Great case. I think you should definitely use that one in your paper, along with the Russia-Ukraine one as well. That's more of a strategic land grab. And then there are still issue correlate disputes between U.S. and Canada. We have interstate disputes all the time with Canada. They never turn into actual violent conflicts, but there is a mobilization of forces on both sides of the border over certain disputed lands, disputed islands, access to fishing, right? So the other one that I wanted that I'll send you a link to is Dan Posner. Dan Posner has this awesome piece about ethnic groups in Malawi and Zambia. And what he looks at is why are these two ethnic groups enemies in one state but friends in another, and why the border as an issue correlate theory. Explain this as choose one of these. Choose either border dispute, religion, land grab, or energy as your thing, but make it border specific. Make it a claim specific. So both states have a claim to a certain territory or a certain resource, whether it be ideological, economic, military, or religious. Choose one of those, and then try to say that, you know, border disputes over, say, religious sailing in territory leads to an increased likelihood of war. That's certainly an argument that you can make. So try to pinpoint one of those, and I think you have a solid theory.
Sweet.
All right. Do you have any questions for me on that?
Oh yes, sir. Like when a presentation, was mine like, was it? I don't think it was a theory overall. I was just like presenting. I felt like I was just presenting what I really found out overall throughout my research, and I didn't know how to actually come up with an actual theory, and because it really wasn't to me. I felt like that wasn't really a theory of mine. It was just basically I just present everything I knew, and
So the difference between presenting what you've observed in research and presenting a theory is that a theory is an organized story of a relationship. So you're arguing through a theory that so for instance, a border dispute over a certain salient thing leads to an increased likelihood of war, right? Than something else, right? So if you say, for instance, that border disputes over religiously salient land is creates a higher likelihood of war than cooperation, then that would be a theory, right? Or that economically important territory is more likely to lead to cooperation than religious or energy or what have you, right? So what you want to do in a theory is you want to make an actual argument, and you want to try to focus on one thing, because it can become very complex to the point that you lose a lot of your audience if you go into too many directions. But yeah, what you found is certainly right, and it's a very strong theory. There's a lot of strong research coming out of this field within IR. You certainly have the beginnings of a theory, but what I want you to do for the paper is just try to tame that and try to create one solid idea within all these things that you found. All right. All right. Now I'm not expecting you to get this in answer today. Try to simplify it as much as you can. Create one stable thought so you can get to by Friday. All right.
Sure.
All right. Any other questions?
That's it.
So far, very good, very good. And I'll send you a link to Paul Hensel's website, also Sarah McLaughlin Mitchell and Dan Potter. Okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, very cool. Good job.
Oh.
All right, so next.
Raul?
Mr. Vega.
Good morning, Dr. Martin. Here's my theory for understanding international behavior through conformist theory. What is conformism? Conformism is starts out with socially constructed labels. We put labels on people based on their ethnicity, nationality, religion, socioeconomic status, gender, etc. And so you use these labels to create identities for people, and identity is not just the fact that they're maybe a Mexican male, middle class, Catholic. It's you create identity, which is you focus on one primary thing. Like maybe you see them as a Mexican, or maybe you see them as an American, or maybe you just see them as a middle class college student. And so my theory of conformism depends on the assumption that people naturally gravitate to similar-minded people or similar people that are in either ideology or physiology. So like an example is the lunchroom tables in especially in high school. Like say you have like a bunch of girls sitting together and they all look very similar, you know, they're white, they're well dressed. Then in this back table you got all the football players sitting together. And then that way you could see like a bunch of different groups of people sitting together if you actually took a whole picture of the cafeteria. So why is this important? In conformism is important because it's looking to build alliances based on common beliefs, either politics, religion. So they're building either political or economic alliances, and usually it helps if you have similar religious beliefs, but especially not lately, except maybe in the Middle East. Former institutions and alliances are NATO, the UN, former Warsaw Pact, and Mercosur in Latin America. And then construction institution, which is institutions that just like have naturally been labeled, but don't really have any significance beyond other formal alliances. It's like regions like the Middle East. Like people identify them similarly because they're Arab nations, and most of the people are believe in Islam. And Latin America, just because they all speak Spanish, and Western democracies because they're mostly run by white people, and they're capitalist, and they really look to like colonize. And then another like constructed label is American Indians. There's this whole different there's a bunch of different tribes in North America, especially in the United States. But then they all get grouped together as Indian Americans, and they've kind of used that to, like, anytime they try to go up against the United States in court or anything, they get different American Indian tribes, and they come together as a union. So why do wars happen? What, like sometimes you can't always just align yourself with somebody and build an alliance. It's easier for someone in Latin American countries to kind of create alliances because they have similar colonial histories. They all mostly speak Spanish, and they mostly all believe in the Catholic religion, or if not, each Catholic religion shapes their ideology. But sometimes you have to force your way into a country's culture, and so you do that by invading and occupying and state building. An example I'll give is the U.S. occupation of Japan after World War II. The U.S. stayed there from 1945 to 1952, and during that time, they helped the country rebuild they set up their democracy after they gave up their emperor, the imperial system, and they helped build the economy by helping introduce them to manufacturing. And so now Japan is one of the biggest manufacturers in technology. And so now, because of that, despite the U.S. bombing Japan twice with nuclear bombs, Japan and the U.S. are great allies, and they share very similar cultures in that they enjoy similar tasting pop culture such as anime, baseball, and race cars and other things. And so that's my theory. My theory is, states go to war to build alliances to form difference other states' cultures, making it easier to build alliances.
Alrighty, so now so you said that go to war. Talking about more about why do countries that have gone to war establish durable peace afterwards, right? So your example of the U.S. and Japan, for alliance, or you could even say U.S. and Germany, right?
Yeah.
Is this idea that, or even U.S. and Italy, right? So there's this idea that, we created a durable peace afterwards, and there were no wars. There haven't been any territorial disputes between us, right? We've been working in a very cooperative relationship. I think that's the better question here is what creates a durable peace after war between two assailants, if you will, right?
Yeah.
Two belligerents, right? And I think that's where this idea of culture building, of cultural cooperation, actually comes in. So not only alliance building is part of this process, right? The idea that in order to have an alliance, we need to have culturally or politically or economically similar relationship, right? But how do you create that cohesiveness? You create that cohesiveness in the years following a war. And I like this idea of creating a culture, or both in political, economic, even use pop culture references, where Japan and us have very similar ideologies, very similar thoughts on what democracy should look like, and these are things that have been developed to create a durable peace. So I think you should frame your paper into the establishment of a durable peace, and then put things like cultural connections, political connections, and economic connections in that creation of a durable peace. I like the idea of using similarities to create alliances, to realign with one another, but I also really like this idea of cultural, of it being a socially constructed thing, right? That durable peace is socially constructed. I like that a lot. It's something that isn't being argued at all in the field. There is a field called constructivism that does look at social construction. Some of their work might be good to look at, but I like that you're taking this and using it to understand durable peace. That is a very, very cool thing to look at. Because if you look at it to why wars occur, you're going to lose a lot of people. But as far as creating durable peace after war, your theory makes complete sense. You need to repurpose it for that.
Okay.
Also, I would say choose one or two of these. Choose either a political connection, an economic connection, or a cultural connection, and then I think economic and cultural would be two that you could do together very well, or economic and political would be two that you could build together. Or just choose one of them. But I like this idea of reestablishing a connection with someone that you were an enemy with, and then through that creating a durable peace, creating alliances, creating someone like yourself in this society you just defeated. I would want to. I think the U.S.-Japan, U.S.-Germany example would be good. It would be interesting to see whether or not, because we weren't able to do this in Vietnam, because we weren't able to do this in North Korea, because we weren't able to do this in Iraq or Afghanistan, is that why we lost these wars? Is that why these insurgencies started? Is this why we will likely be at war with one of these countries again later on in time? I kind of like this whole idea of creating a new identity or creating a new culture between the two former warring parties. I think you have a lot of room to run with this. To try to keep it within the idea of creating a durable.
Yeah.
And then alliances are formed between people who have similar views that connect those two ideas. All right?
Okay.
Have any questions for me on this?
No, you kind of answered my questions. I just needed like guidance and like helping form the theory and just like which direction to go with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like this idea of U.S. Japan, U.S. Germany, U.S. South Korea, where this all happened. It happened in all of them, right?
Yeah.
Let's see. I mean, It happened between Britain and France in the mid 1800s. It happened. Let's see. It happened. What are some other good ones? Spain and the U.S. After the Spanish-American War, there's now this economic connection between the two countries, a reason not to go to war with each other again. Let's see, Russo-Japan War was another one, even though Japan eventually did fight Russia again, but okay, that might be a little bit of a caveat right there. So yeah, you see these types of things, and what is good about this theory is that later on, if you continue with this, you can test whether or not you can actually measure cultural dependence or cultural cooperation after the war, and measure durable peace, and see whether or not peace duration after war increases or decreases when these types of connections are made. So this is something that can be tested, which is great. That's the whole thing about a theory, that you need to have something that can be tested. I think you just need to try to just repurpose this to creation of durable peace. I think you'll be fine.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
Otherwise, very good job. Very interesting theory.
Okay.
Conformism. Interesting. I like it.
Yeah.
But you might want to look at some of the stuff on constructivism, which is this idea of social construction. Okay?
Okay. All
All right.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Very cool. All right. Anybody? Is there anyone else?
That's it for here.
All right. Cool. Thanks a bunch, guys, for